It's not what the Tennessee Titans want to hear, but Brian Callahan might be the worst coach in the AFC South. I'll break it down on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. On today's show, we are going to continue ranking the AFC South. I did the entire offense, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, even special teams. On yesterday's episode today, we're going to talk about the teams as a whole. We're going to talk about the head coaches for each of these teams, and we're going to talk about the defensive side of the ball. Before I get into all of it, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, then you need to be one. It may be summer break for the Tennessee Titans, but there is no summer break. There is no off season for the Locked On Titans podcast on 5 days a week, every week, all year long, no matter what. And this week is division rivalry week. We talked about the offense. We're doing defense today. Tomorrow, we're going to look at a deep dive on a division rivals offseason so far. We'll do Colts. We'll do Texans. We'll do Jags all this week. Can't wait to dive into all of it with you guys. Before we do all that, though, we got to rank the teams as a whole. And I'll get more into why I have each of the three division rivals ranked where they're at right now, but I have the Texans at number one, 2 playoff wins in a row. If you don't have the Texans power ranked number 1 right now, I don't really know what we're doing. I actually have Jacksonville power ranked number 2. I think Jacksonville has a bounce back season. I have the Titans at number 3 with potential to move up, of course. And I do have the Colts at number 4. I know that's a little bit of a hot take. But again, when we deep dive into those teams, I'm going to give you my reasons for why I think these teams finish the way that they finished. But I have the Titans at 3rd. That would obviously be a major step up after being ranked 4th. There's no way, although Jacksonville was pretty terrible too. You could call it even if you wanted to. But despite that, the Titans moving out of the bottom of the division would be nice for everybody. It would be nice for the fans. It would be nice for the team, the players. It would mean good things for Cam Ward. And more importantly, it would be good things for Brian Callahan. Because I think we talk about the team ranks, but when we start to talk about the coaches, all right, ranking the coaches in the AFC South, there is no way that you could put anyone over DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans absolutely flipped that Houston Texans franchise with his own aura. For real. That's what happened. The team was terrible. Remember, they had Lovie Smith and, I don't even remember the other. Culley? Was it David Culley? Something like that. They just ran through one year, just turning it over every time, and then DeMeco Ryans showed up. No experience as a head coach, was a 1-year defensive coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers, ran a great defense, had great energy, but still a young coach, a former player. Sometimes there's a transition period, but no, right away. He gets C.J. Stroud in the building, gets Will Anderson in the building, restarts the entire culture, wins back-to-back playoff games, win the division both years. Like, DeMeco Ryans, there is no argument for anybody else right now. And hats off to DeMeco Ryans. Although, let me just say, and we'll talk about this more when we do the Texans episode this week. But if C.J. Stroud looks bad again, and if the Texans were to, for some reason, take a step back and maybe not make the playoffs, maybe they get a wild card and they get destroyed in the wild card game and it looks bad. They don't look like they're ready to compete. If that happens, DeMeco Ryans will be on the hot seat the season after. Because when you're a defensive coordinator head coach, figuring out the offensive coordinator is so critical. So I'm just saying, let's keep our eyes over on Houston. But DeMeco Ryans is clearly the best coach right now. And number 2, I have Shane Steichen. He took a team led by Gardner Minshew and got him within one inaccurate swing pass to a running back from making the playoffs over Houston 2 years ago. Shane Steichen's a good coach. Indy always is competitive. Their quarterback situation, he has not been able to develop Anthony Richardson. And if you want to take away from Shane Steichen for that, by all means, go ahead. That's why he's not number 1. That's why the Colts can't get to the playoffs, because he hasn't been able to develop Anthony Richardson, and honestly, it's gone the other way. But now he gets Daniel Jones, somebody who I'm certain that he wanted. And if the Colts have a worse season than what they've had recently, which might be what I'm predicting, spoiler alert for the Colts episode, and I guess I spoiled that already, ranking them 4th, but then the heat might be on Shane Steichen. But at this moment in time, you can't put anybody over those two, and those two are clearly defined with DeMeco 1 and Shane Steichen 2. Brian Callahan is at best number 3. At best. And that's literally the only reason Brian Callahan gets to be number 3 is because he has been a head coach for a year, and we just don't know what Liam Cohen is going to do. I don't know what Liam Cohen's going to do as a head coach for Jacksonville. How can I rank him over Brian Callahan when he's never coached a game in his life? Well, as a head coach in the NFL. You know what I'm saying. And quite frankly, I think there's a way that you could flip that view on its head, that someone could argue to me and say, well, actually, I think you should rank Brian Callahan 4th because we don't know what Liam Cohen is, but we know Brian Callahan's not good. Now, that's not the argument I'm making. I have Brian Callahan 3rd. I think there's more potential. I can't rank Liam Cohen over him without Cohen ever coaching a game. But if you want to say the potential to be good based on what we saw from Brian Callahan last year, which was bad, and I'll remind you, everything was bad last year to go 3-14. Roster, bad. Nicholas Petit-Ferrer played right tackle for a lot of time. Go look at the right tackles last year. Bad. Look at the edge rushers, the linebackers, the cornerbacks last year. Bad. Well, I guess the corners weren't too bad. Darrell Baker filled in admirably, and JBJ and Roger. But there were some spots on this roster that were despicably bad. Wide receiver. And then you add in the quarterback play. I feel like the guy who created the Powder Puff Girls right now. We're just throwing in different things. But then you add in the quarterback play, which absolutely sunk the Titans in multiple scenarios. Most notably Will Levis's crazy turnovers. Think about the Bengals game. Think about, the early season, the Jets, the Bears, the Packers. Not good. And those aren't necessarily all Brian Callahan's fault. The quarterback play has to be somewhat on Brian Callahan. He's the one who's tasked with making the quarterbacks better. But the roster composition not being good, that can't be on Brian Callahan. Ray Carthon was apparently not a worthy GM. That can't be on Brian Callahan. But that team was unprepared to play multiple weeks. We talked about it. Putting Will Levis back out there against the Colts after the bye, bad decision. That's on Brian Callahan. They should have won that game. The Bills game probably would have gone whatever. I know that the Lions probably would have won anyway, but the special teams performance in that game, despicable. Think about the Washington Commanders game, where they just come out and they give up 300 yards, not ready to play, totally discombobulated, awful. There are so many games last year where it was Brian Callahan's fault. It was. So if you want to say, hey, we know something about Brian Callahan and it's more negative versus we don't know anything about Liam Cohen, you could put him over just based on potential. That is an argument. It's not one I'm making. I Brian Callahan 3rd. If Brian Callahan doesn't find a way to become like the second best coach in the division, I don't know if he's going to be the coach in 2026. So something to watch. going forward. But now let's get into the defensive side of the ball, my ranks there. First, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, summer sports are in full swing, whether it's baseball under the lights, golf on the greens, high-stakes soccer action across the pond. FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following all the action. Why not make it just a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Look, I love FanDuel. You can track all your favorite matchups. The app constantly refreshes with new daily promotions to keep things fun. It's easy to use, fast to pay out. It makes regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or I'm just riding to bed all the way into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it easy to feel like I am part of the action. Are you new to FanDuel? New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel Sportsbook app right now, or you can go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started again. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We are ranking the AFC South. Again, on yesterday's episode, I did the offensive side of the ball and special teams. If you missed that, evergreen content, go back and check that out. Today, we looked at the teams at large. We looked at the head coaches. Now I want to dive into the defensive side of the ball. We start with the D-line. And look, the defensive line, it's tough for the Titans. We knew, if you count, for me, D-line is the interior D-line and the edge rushers, and it's just rough for the Titans. I have the Titans ranked dead last in this area. Now let's go through it. The Houston Texans, number one by far to me. Like, they have an awesome defensive line. So many players. I just kept writing them down. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, both top 10 edge rushers in the NFL. Danico Autry, at this point, a great role player. More interior defensive line run stuffers like Fali Fatukasi or Tim Settle Jr. Mario Edwards is depth. Sheldon Rankins is depth. Darrell Taylor, who absolutely whooped J.C. Latham on a few reps last year in that Bears game. Darrell Taylor, what an awesome. I would love to have Darrell Taylor on the Titans. I wanted them to sign Darrell Taylor. Young, juice, off the edge. Why not? So we got Lorenzo Carter instead. Yikes. Anyways, they have not only super high-end talent, they have depth for days. Awesome defensive front in Houston. But second, I'm going with the Jags. Jaguars have a pretty good defensive front of their own. They just don't have the depth and the, certified, bona fide players. Even if they're not incredible players, I know exactly who Danico Autry is. I know exactly who Fali Fatukasi is. I know exactly who they are. Okay? Maybe not as much with Jacksonville, but I know Josh Hines-Allen is one of the top 10 edge rushers in the NFL. And Travon Walker may not become a elite number one top tier edge, but he's a very, very good double-digit sack player. They have Eric Armstead as depth. Mason Smith out of LSU. This is a little confirmation bias, I must admit, but I loved Mason Smith. 6'5", 300, length. Just needed a little bit more coaching. Mason Smith stepping up this year. Devon Hamilton, very good player. Now, the Jags are more top-heavy with that top three, and they don't have the depth that the Texans have. But they're number two for me. And number three is the Colts. DeForest Buckner is the best interior defensive lineman in the division. DeForest Buckner is better than Jeffrey Simmons. Maybe Jeffrey Simmons can change that this year. Jeffrey Simmons at his best, I believe is better than DeForest Buckner. But Jeffrey Simmons' last 2 seasons and DeForest Buckner is a better football player right now today than Jeffrey Simmons is. Grover Stewart, amazing interior defensive line run stuffer. Incredible run stuffer on the interior. Like, even gives you just a little bit in the pass rush. Not a ton, but just enough. They have young guys on the edge. Kwity Paye. They just drafted JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State. They have Latu from UCLA, who they drafted in the first round last year. Samson Ebukam as well, who's a very good depth piece as an edge rusher. They don't have the high-end talent of the Jags and the Texans. They have Buckner, and that's really it. But they have good depth and solid pieces, more depth than the Titans. Now look, Big Jeff, awesome. One of the top 5 names. I mean, Anderson and Hunter, Josh Hines Allen, Buckner, and then Big Jeff. I would say Jeff is the 5th best defensive lineman out of this group that we've discussed. But Big Jeff is good. He's just not Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, Josh Hines Allen, or DeForest Buckner. So the Titans have the worst best player. And then T'Vondre Sweat. Is T'Vondre Sweat better than Danielle Hunter, Travon Walker, or Grover Stewart? No. Maybe equal with Grover Stewart at best. They're, similar styles. But he's not better than Travon Walker or Danielle Hunter. Not even close. And then Arden Key. I would say Arden Key is probably better than Kwity Paye, or maybe not Kwity Paye. Eric Armstead, Danico Autry. I would say Arden Key's better than those players right now. Remember, this is Danico Autry 2 years removed from the last time you saw him. He's not as good as he was when he was just starting with the Titans. But Femi Oladejo, how's he going to be? Is he going to be better than JTT? Is he going to be better than Kwity Paye? Is he going to be better than Latu? Probably not, right? Draymond Jones is a solid player, I'd say, similar to like a Mario Edwards, Darrell Taylor level, Eric Armstead level. Draymond Jones could be like that. Lorenzo Carter's not very good. Good run stuffer. Sebastian Joseph Day, solid player, but you see what I mean? Again, we can't say that the Titans have a terrible edge rush group and then not act like, the whole defensive line group won't suffer from that. They just don't have, out of Big Jeff, T'Vondre Sweat, Arden Key, and then probably Draymond Jones, those are the only guys you could look at. Sebastian Joseph Day is low level, but those are the only guys you could look at and be like, oh, those are good starters. And I wouldn't even say Arden Key is a good starter. He's a low-level starter. So they have Jeff and Sweat. Those are the only good starters on the D-line. And then you move to linebacker. And I think the Titans are 3rd, actually, at linebacker. I know that sounds crazy, but let me explain. I have the Texans at number 1, Azeez Al-Shire, low-level starting linebacker, maybe even, I would say average. He is an average starting linebacker, which is what I've contended all along. But that's the top linebacker in the league, or in the division, sorry. Christian Harris, Henry To'oTo'o, although Henry To'oTo'o, I'm not as high on him. But that's a solid group, and they have the best linebacker. I like the Jags' top linebacker of Folasade Oluokun. Devin Lloyd has been hit or miss. He hasn't really lived up to his draft spot. Chad Mumma is good backup. But then I went with the Titans. I think Cody Barton is a huge improvement. Look, the Colts have Zaire Franklin, who's a very good starting linebacker. But after that, who do they have? And why are they better than what the Titans have? Jalen Carleys, a 5th-round pick, last year's draft. Cameron McGrone? Who? No. Give me James Williams, Cedric Gray, Otis Reese, Anthony Ojiri, give me those guys and Cody Barton over Zaire Franklin and Jalen Carleys and Cameron McGrone. You know what I mean? So I know the Titans linebacker group is not good, and we know that. But, I don't think – my thing with the Colts is we'll get to the Colts this week, but, their roster is just not as good as what people think and remember it as. And linebacker is one of those spots where they used to be super stacked with Franklin and Leonard and and EJ Speed, and they had, and they don't anymore. They just don't have that talent at linebacker anymore. But with that being said, let's move to the secondary, folks. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We are ranking the head coaches, the teams, the defensive side of the ball. Yesterday's episode, we did the offense, we did some special teams. I had to move some things around here to make everything fit within the 30 minutes, you know what I mean? So forgive me if things don't necessarily look perfect, I guess, with some of the graphical stuff, which most of you guys listening on the podcast don't even care. So what are we talking about? But thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed. Stay subscribed. For your second listen, though, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. As training camp gets closer, moves are being made. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. But looking at the secondary, at cornerback, hot take, I think the Titans are fourth. I think the Titans have gone from what we thought last year was the number one cornerback room in the AFC South to the worst, okay? I have the Texans at number one. I think no matter what, they're the number one spot. Derek Stingley Jr. might be the best cornerback in the NFL. At least he can make that argument last year. Kamari Lassiter looked like an excellent rookie last year out of Georgia. Jalen Petrie is a nickelback. I love Jalen Petrie. He's kind of a safety, kind of a nickelback. He moves around, but I think he's going to play mostly in the slot this year for them. Love Jalen Petrie. Love that threesome for the Texans. Number one. Second, I went with the Jags. Look, they add in Travis Hunter, who could be an absolute elite cornerback if he wants to be. They have Tyson Campbell, who's a good player. Jerry and Jones out of Florida State, I'm very high on. Jordan Lewis out of Michigan's had some injuries throughout his career, but he can come in, give some veteran leadership. I like that group. And then we get to the Colts. The Colts have finally made some additions to their secondary in free agency. They had Charvarius Ward, who I think is a very good player. They still have Kenny Moore, who might be one of the top three slot cornerbacks in the NFL. Jalen Jones is a young player, and they have Juju Brents, who's had some injury issues, but maybe he's going to come up and live up to his potential. I like that group better than Roger McCreary, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., and Darrell Baker, Gabe Jeudy-Lawley, Jamari Harris, Marcus Harris. Look, I'm sorry, but when I made these rankings, I made them with the same feelings that I expressed to you guys over the last few weeks. I do not think that L'Jarius Sneed ever plays for this team again. And if he does, I don't think he'll be on the field very long. He'll get hurt immediately again. His heart is not in it to play for the Titans. He bamboozled them. He got their money. He started acting out. He's hurt. It's going to be a disaster. I'm sorry. I have a hard time thinking anything else other than that right now about L'Jarius Sneed's situation. It is going to end in utter disappointment. We're never going to feel happy feelings again with the L'Jarius Sneed situation until when he's off the team and we could say, that failed, let's move on. That will be the next happy feeling that we feel in relation to L'Jarius Sneed and the Tennessee Titans. I'm sorry, that's just where I'm at right now. So if that's the case and Sneed doesn't come back healthy and he doesn't play, then the Titans have by far the worst cornerback group in the division. If L'Jarius Sneed were to come back and be himself, though, if L'Jarius Sneed were to come back and turn back into a top 10 corner in the NFL, I would have the Titans at number 2. So it's a big swing point. He's a big X factor. And next week, we're going to do my top 3, get into my top 3 week. And when we talk about the top 3 biggest X factors on the Titans for the season as players, L'Jarius Sneed has to be one of those. So we'll dive into that eventually. But with him up in the air, with what the Titans have right now, I like McCreary. I like Jarvis Brownlee Jr., but boy, that's a bad spot for the Titans. And then it's safety. I have the Titans second at safety. Titans safety group is pretty solid. I went with the Colts with Cam Bynum, who I think is really good, and Nick Cross. If you wanted to put the Titans group above that, I would accept it, but that's a good group. And then Amani Hooker and Xavier Woods, obviously, for the Titans. The Texans have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who is good. I think he's a little overrated because he's so loud. You know what I mean? They have Caden Bullock as well, who I think is going to be a solid player. And then Jimmy Ward, old school veteran. The Jags have the worst safety group, though. They have Darnell Savage and Eric Murray. It's not good. The Jags safety group is awful. So I think the Titans have the second best safety group, the fourth best cornerback room, the third best linebacker group, the fourth best defensive line. Third best head coach. This is where it's a little tough for the Titans. They may get good defensive coordination from Denard Wilson to elevate their ceiling, but talent-wise, especially with the Sneed question hanging out there, tough spot for the Titans talent-wise on defense. But let me know your rankings. Again, been 2 fun days of ranking position groups here in the AFC South. Tomorrow I'm going to continue division rival week as we deep dive into our AFC South opponents. I'm going to go over what moves they made, players they've lost, they've gained. We're going to do a crossover with the host of that team's show. And then I'm going to give you my final take on what I think the Titans division rivals do this season. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.